This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, and as always today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host Zach. Mate, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm less tired than I was in recording yesterday because I've had a massive sleep since then. However, I'm still absolutely buzzing off of another win. Sorting out all the social media clips and stuff has been fun because it's just kind of like, man, everything's so happy.
Yeah, it's great. You're right. It's not 11 o'clock at night, so it's the perfect time to be recording. And just look, we said it a lot, but it has to be reiterated because sometimes it's easy to look past the good times whilst you're in them. But what a time to be a Saints fan at the moment.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Going into a game essentially knowing you're going to win it, which is how we felt yesterday, which is bad. We shouldn't have felt that, but ultimately we won 3-0. So it's just that's not been a thing that we've been able to experience a lot in the last couple of years, and just nice to be there again, I guess.
That's it. But look, today there's a small gap in between all of the football. We get one a week for the rest of the season, mate, so we've got to make the most of it.
Oof.
But look, last week I talked a bit about the accounts that got published and the financial implications, and of course it was to do with last season, and it seemed to go down really well. People really liked it. It was good, and I really enjoyed it. Mate. And so look, we've gone one step further and thought about it a bit more and got some more thoughts and details to kind of think about what, as we sort of head to the end of this season, what we can expect next year with what happens if we do and what happens if we don't, because it's a big point, right? 3 games ago we weren't sure we were going to make the playoffs. Now there's, who knows, right? Playoffs probably, hopefully, automatics maybe, but that's still a big question mark because the PSR we've heard this week, right? West Brom being charged potentially with a points deduction for what's being reported as a minor breach of PSR. One of their, from what I understand, from what I've read from admittedly no real reliable sources, but one of their authorized deductions that you get for the PSR, there's certain exclusions. They'd spent slightly more on it than the actual exclusion allows or something. So it was, the rules are complicated, man.
That seems like the most minor of minor things, right? Like that's what I'm kind of.
But breach is a breach, right? You've got to draw the line somewhere. So I kind of get it. We only breached by £3 million. You just don't know, right? I breached my taxes by £3 million, HMRC would be pretty upset.
I understand. It's just one of those things where basically what you should actually do, clearly, is commit a bunch of crimes in one go that takes so long to investigate that it spans multiple seasons. So then you never have to pay for the consequences until it's a problem for the future, right? Otherwise known as Man City FC. Allegedly in Minecraft, obviously.
Yeah, but moving swiftly on from that, yes, what it shows is that actually the PSR rules are complicated, they're complex, and actually there's no real way to properly digest it unless you are, unless you have full access to the detailed breakdown of the accounts and a proper financial understanding of the rules, and that very deliberately makes that a very select group of people. But what I can do is guess. Is look at the averages across the board and kind of forecast is maybe the more professional way of putting it, Zach. But so how close are we to the PSR line was the first question I wanted to ask, because obviously we made some profit in the previous year to this set of accounts. So we're talking a year behind, right? So last season we lost 53.9 million pre-tax. The season before, which refers to the championship season, we made profit pre-tax, partially through player sales, partially through cutting costs, partially through winning promotion, and all of these things. And so where does that leave us? Because obviously the 87 million, which was the year before, then drops off of the books, basically. So, yeah, it puts us in a pretty good position, is the real answer. There are a lot of the deductions that you can make, it can be expected that we spend a lot of money on, basically. The average for a club in the championship, for example, for deductions on academy spending is around 250,000, I believe, whereas ours is probably a bit higher. And so it all kind of tallies up. And obviously we've had big player sales last season, like Tyler Diblin, who some of that cost will be spread and remunerated into the budget. So it kind of, when we look back at the January window and we were like, "Oh, this is a crazy window. Why aren't we investing better?" Actually, what we've done is create a really solid foundation, actually. And when we get to the bit where I sort of talk about what next season might look like, you understand that is kind of in both cases, which is nice. It's just really sensible, which almost sometimes feels a bit boring, right?
Yeah, no, I get that, but at the same time, I much prefer the club to be sensible than not, especially when you're having a look around at the sort of clubs around us. You know, Luton being going down and where they are now after the heights of the Premier League and the money spent in the Premier League, and then Leicester, who were Premier League winners a decade ago, and as you said, West Brom having a points deduction and everything that's going on with Sheffield Wednesday. It's like this isn't like an off the cuff occurrence across football right now, right? This is a thing that's happening to significantly more clubs than we would like it to, and maybe that's partly due to PSR. So where I'm at is that I would always prefer that everything is sensible and cooler heads prevail with everything that's happening.
Yeah, definitely, and like specifically back to the West Brom example, as it's well documented on the show, ties to West Brom fans within the family. Obviously, speaking to them about it, the response was, "Have we breached PSR? We haven't had any money to spend forever." So, but so it's good that we've built this, and it's very clear that we've had to recover from a pretty difficult situation, right? And some of that comes from prior to Sports Republic, and some of that comes from the almost like panic section of Sports Republic. But all of this, we talked even before this incredible run we're on about the excellent job of the business side of the club that Sports Republic have been doing. Our criticisms were purely based on the football, and it's good. I think it sets us up really well for what's to come. So to kind of go into slightly more detail, I'm not just gonna throw numbers because I find that really boring. But effectively, the side by side for it is, right? Obviously, it doesn't take genius or any level of analysis to know if we go up to the Premier League, we're going to make more money and going to be in a better position, right? So that's not what this is.
we don't need to bit like higher league equals more money is a thing that I think most people have a basic understanding of, right?
However, when it comes down to it, if we go up to the Premier League, we can expect our revenue to increase by about £120 million before anything else is taken into the equation. Just if we stayed exactly as we are and move up to the Premier League and no sales happen and we don't buy anyone, that's roughly what we're looking at revenue-wise in an increase, which, of course, taking into account the loss and the profit that kind of feed into the PSR rules, and also the fact that the PSR rules in the Premier League allow you to lose more money than the Championship, which is also pretty crazy. We'll potentially have some money to play with in the summer, is what that leads to. And
Nice.
we've talked about positions we're going to need to strengthen, right? We've talked about how we probably need a fullback. We definitely need a striker. And the goalkeeper situation is going to undoubtedly be complex.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. We've covered it before. We're going to cover it all summer, but let's leave it complicated. Right?
It's going to be complicated, and I imagine will hopefully result in like plus money. But again, that kind of depends on promotion or not. But
yeah.
Anyway, back to you with the expertise around the actual financials.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because that increase in revenue, like, obviously, it's not as simple as what I'm about to say. However, what we lost pre-tax last year was less than that increase in revenue will be, right? So it covers it. It puts us in solid footing, gives us the foundation. And yes, we will need to invest to get up to, to build a squad that's going to be able to deal with the Premier League. And if you're as optimistic as me about the FA Cup, there might have to be investment into a squad that's able to cope with the Europa League, right? These are things we have to think about. Just put it out there. It's not a not option, right?
Mad that's a that's a genuine thing we need to kind of think about.
180 minutes away from that being a genuine possibility. Crazy. But yeah, basically we'll be looking to have a transfer budget at that point, if without anyone going or without anything changing, of about 100 million, 60 to 100 million, to comfortably fall in line with a low risk PSR strategy. Which we know the board strategy, we know who we are. That's not going to be, we're going to go and sign a £100 million striker, right? They're going to build with lower cost talents they think they can improve, some with experience, some with youth, and try and balance it that way. But, maybe that budget, instead of being like £6 to £12 million a player, maybe we're looking in the like £20 to £30 million a player range for that same improvement.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'd expect, right? But you've got to make sure you sort of keep within the rules. And also, it depends on how much of an overhaul we think we'll actually need. Because currently, you said we want to strengthen in 2 or 3 positions, but they might decide, in actuality, that they want to strengthen in all positions, which might. But obviously, player sales will contribute to that as well.
Exactly, right? Because there are going to be outgoings, almost definitely. Players will leave, players will need replacing. Like we say, the goalkeeper situation will need resolving and will result in finances one way or another.
Contracts will end. Charlie
and also,
Taylor.
That was a low risk. That was a low risk forecast, right? That's low PSR risk. So actually, if we want to really push ourselves to the limit to guarantee Premier League survival or a Europa League trophy, there's potential room to push a higher risk strategy or closer to the PSR line, right? So it is going to be interesting. Obviously, the counterpoint to that is, you've probably noticed that the £100 million safe budget for PSR and the increase in how much you're allowed to lose by PSR in the Premier League, that doesn't exist at all if we stay down, right? Effectively, our transfer budget will be entirely sales driven if we stay in the Championship. And even then, cuts will have to be made to wages, because the wage turnover we're at would basically push us into breach situation of PSR. So we'd have to cut wages, cut costs overall. It probably would be good.
It's a little bit scary, mate, isn't it, really? Because it's I know I have a lot of faith that we could probably rebuild something off the back of it. It's the fact that with what we've got currently, we don't really want to. We don't want to have to go through that. I don't want to have to lose all of the players that we've got currently. It's a really good group. the reality of the situation is that that's what the cost of not being promoted will do, right?
Yeah. And so, whilst it's a reasonably popular opinion, I've seen people say it, I think I've said it myself. Maybe it's too soon to go up. Maybe from a footballing perspective, we need another year in the Championship to regroup and build. From the financial side of things, realistically, it's just not an option. We don't. If we go down, it's not a case of rebuild. It's almost a case of survive. Not so much in the football context, hopefully, but definitely in the financial context. It becomes a case of cut and save as opposed to build and invest. So the outlook's either way pretty scary stuff. It's going to be a fascinating summer. But just goes to show that it's all to play for. We really need to be pushing for it. You're right. The joke. Let's be honest. It is a joke. We're not expecting to win the FA Cup. Put that out there, right? Miracles happen, and we've talked about expectation versus belief. I believe we can win the FA Cup, but do not expect that we are going to win the FA Cup. But that is something else to take into consideration for next season. It's a crazy situation we might find ourselves in where we are both a promoted team and a European, at least in the group stages. You've got to feel like we probably wouldn't prioritise doing well in Europe and would prioritise staying in the Premier League. But the thought of even potentially having to organise a European away day is nuts, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, but look, we've got to see a couple of teams who are struggling this year do that, right? With Spurs, who were Champions League and are now in the relegation zone and don't look like they're coming out of it anytime soon, if I'm totally honest. And then Forest in a similar position as well, where they had that massive argument with Crystal Palace to get into Europa and are now on their fourth manager of the season. And that seems to be really, really hard to manage that. And so it is kind of weird that might genuinely be a thing we need to prepare for.
Yeah, because it's a scary prospect, right? You talk about the step up to the Premier League from the Championship and evidenced that in our previous season. This squad is fantastic. And do I believe it in its current form it could compete in the Premier League? Yes. Does that mean that we don't need to strengthen? No, we're going to need to build squad depth, and there are positions that are going to become concerns. And on top of that, players are going to move on because that is the nature of the sport. So it's going to be a busy summer either way. But yeah, the thought that realistically, even for forecasts from like the most prepared they could be from Sports Republic, and they will have forecasted out what they need to do to stay if they stay in the Championship. They're not stupid. They're good business people. They will have a plan, okay? And I believe it will not be devastating, but it will not be the same. And in the same way, they'll have a plan for going up to the Premier League. But I cannot imagine for a second that their forecast and plan for going up in the Premier League involves a European run.
Yeah, you've got to wonder if all of a sudden we get to Wembley and it's a fully rotated squad, you know what's going on.
And look, the nature of the cup is that we'd win anyway, because that's the joy of it. But yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting to think about. It's fascinating, but I just think it's crucial to take note, because it really, until I read through it, it didn't sit as heavily with me as it has now that I understand it, how important promotion is. Because I was firmly in the camp of just prefer Championship football, to be honest. I'm fine with it, but next season is potentially a bit more bleak.
We can't enjoy it as much, right? If it's going to be, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's another year, but
I don't think it would be disaster, but it would not be immediate rebuild. It would be slow and steady rebuild, I think, from that point, which is a trickier place to be. Once you're in that place, it's a hard league to get out of. So, and that's not what we want. So yeah, let's just do it. Win all 4 of the games remaining. Go up by hook or by crook, and have a fantastic summer where we can contemplate what £100 million striker we're going to sign.
Yep, and then also potentially what where we're going to stay when we go to Europe. You know,
Yeah,
what teams we're going to play.
yeah, it's gonna be great.
Look forward to the Community Shield. Oh boy, what a day!
But look, I hope that that forecast and that sort of speculation on the future provides a bit of insight and a bit of entertainment. But that's all I've got, mate. That's it.
Cool.
But
Appreciate it, mate. No, it's again interesting to get a bit of an insight into it. The financial side of things are a thing I struggle with in life, let alone looking into football side of financials. So it's always fascinating to me when you do a deep dive into it because, you know, like with me when I use my history degree, this is genuinely you going like, I just find numbers really interesting, and I'm like, I'm really glad one of us do.
it's good. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening and joining us. And thank you, mate, for listening to me.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Look, we will be back tomorrow as we preview our trip to Swansea to hopefully make it 19 games unbeaten, which is absolutely insane. But look, let us know in the comments on the socials how you're feeling. What European away day do you want most? That's what I want to hear from you in the comments. We are Daily Saints Pod, absolutely everywhere. X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Hit us up, let us know. I cannot wait to hear your answers. Honestly, it is amazing. What a time to be a Saints fan. Until tomorrow, though, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we will see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.